Welcome to this first look for Alphacore number 1. I'm not going to do a full review. This is really just a first look on the book. I received this in a record time, as usual, from Rippaverse. Honestly, I can't expect that from all indie creators, but it is very refreshing to see that, you pay money and you get your book. It's somewhat surprising in this day and age to have something of the sort. So within 24 hours of its shipping, I got it. Of course, I was probably one of the first one to place the order as the members had their first thing. I'm not a member of Rippaverse, so I got my book afterwards in the pile. But it was only a 30-minute pre-order. I was probably still in the first few to get it. I mean, I was expecting it, and I was, on the dot when the campaign started. I jumped on the website, waited with the countdown that they had for the new release. This one went a lot smoother than ISOM number 2, and I hope this is what we can expect in the future. Once again, the package was shipped in a perfect box with a perfect cardboard cover and everything, so no issues there whatsoever with the books. I think the poly bags are a little bit cheaper this time around than the one we had for ISOM. I'm not sure. They feel a little bit different. Then again, a lot of people will simply rebag them. It's really up to you. So here we're really dealing with super cops, which is not a concept that we have very often in superhero comics, at least. I mean, in manga, you have it every once in a while, but in American comics, most of the time superheroes are vigilante and not actually part of the police force. And this old book could very well be classified as a police procedural rather than a superhero comic or an action comic. Rather than having a super cop like Gibbs or Horatio Caine, we have actual superhero cops. And that's what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be following the rules and actually dealing with crimes related to accepts or other supernatural creatures. So they're not, supposed to go around arresting average citizens. That's the police job. Alphacore's job is to take care of the big and nasties. How does it stack against ISOM? Well, in my opinion, the art in this one is much better. I do like the far more cartoony look. It does have that closer of a look to a cartoon than to a very realistic, gritty kind of comic like ISOM. It's a different style of comic in the end as well. ISOM, like I often say, the first issue could very well be a police noir, while the second one is a superhero and action comic. But even there, the style is still very set in its ways. But I still like Avery's story more because it's got a direct line. It's got a kind of a overarching plot and an overarching element that we're learning about the universe more than just a character or a story. But in the end, Alphacore is a lot easier to set up as a serial. I mean, you could easily have 3-4 Alphacore released in a year, even if they don't have an overarching plot. Each of them could be a single police procedural episode, basically, and it would work really well. And the standard American format of floppies, probably not. We'd want something a little bit more thick for that kind of story. Much closer to a French bande dessinée, once again. Another thing that I see a lot of indie comic books should go towards a little bit more. Are the member of Alphacore cool? Well, one thing we need to know is that while there's the 3 main members of Alphacore, they've got a whole support staff of police officers and probably former military. But we're still going to just talk about the members of Alphacore here. Brian Solery is, in my opinion, the most interesting of the bunch. Former military man, retired from service, decided to go into police. Not an uncommon line for someone in that particular line of business. Compared to what I was actually expecting, he's not overly competent. He's good at his job, and he's good at solving crimes, physically. But he's not the smartest of the bunch. He's not the most noble and the most heroic. He just knows what he wants to do and wants to do good, which makes him an actually very interesting character and a very good role model, which is not a thing we have tons of in modern comics. Vasquez is the actual detective in the outfit. She is probably smarter than most of her friends and staff, and she's also quite quick to remind people of it. She is maybe a bit more vain and a bit more prideful than the other members of Alphacore. She is hot-headed and also pretty hot, so that's a good combo. And her powers do look rather destructive, as we see when she decides to take out her anger on an airplane. But it works really well, and she is the most humane of the bunch. She's the one that we get to spend the most time with as well in this book, I believe. I'd have to check again. Maxwell is our strong silent type. He shows up when shit really goes down. He's pure muscle. I'm not sure what other powers he has. He can fly. He's really strong, and he does seem to be very good at fighting. He does say a single line in the whole thing, so he's probably not mute. That's a thing to know. That means that he has already as many lines as Brandon Graves in the Gungrave anime, and he does make a good show of it every time he is on page. There isn't too many connections to ISOM in this book. We see some characters that were introduced in ISOM, basically people who we now know live and interact with Fluorspark, but there's no direct connection. I don't know in the time frame or in the time here where this is in comparison to ISOM 1 or ISOM 2. We don't have that clear cut here. We still don't get an explanation as to where the accept actually come from. That's actually what's the most intriguing to me right now, especially since we see a lot more accepts in this one than we did in ISOM. In ISOM, we were really led to believe that accepts were exceptionally rare, but here we do see a fair number of them. And one thing that I find nice is that there doesn't seem to be a huge outcry against them like we see in many mutant comics, let's say. We saw Niobe earlier on the channel where there were a lot of outcry against those that were different, the genomes. Here, people seem to have realized that accepts exist and maybe they need to deal with it. When we look at some of our bad guys, we're not going to look at all of them. I mean, I want to keep some secrets for you guys. We have Galvin, who is our super tweaker. Controls electricity and recharges by touching electric outlets or touching electrical probes and things like that, which is really nice. It does show that he's quite capable at using his power, and they're rather destructive. So he's not just another mook that the Alphacore is going to take out and that's it. He's probably going to come back, and he's got potential to come back. He's an average villain, yes, but an average villain that is just interesting enough to keep him around. Then we've got our friend Billy Bob. Yep, that's his actual name, Billy Bob, who's a redneck who had the power to turn himself into magma. Really damn strong, doesn't seem to be that smart. That works again perfectly fine. Not the most imaginative villain, once again, but something that is easy to realize, easy to imagine. The hands are a little bit weird here, but both hands have the 4 fingers, so when he transforms, he probably loses a finger. That's possible, or I'm not seeing it right. Most of the art in this is really great. I haven't had time to really dig into it too much. The characters also behave like actual humans throughout the entire book. The Alphacore members, well, Vasquez and Solari get into it a couple times. All the police officers behave like actual police officers if faced with something that they don't understand or can't control easily. They have their own desires and that they project. So everybody here is far more realistic than what you would have in many of the X-Men comics or things like that, I would say. Probably a little bit closer to Doom Patrol in terms of the interaction between the characters. They work together because they know they need to work together, but they might not agree or be the best of friends all the time, which is very interesting. Gives a lot more background to the whole story. The Sky Base, the Eyrie or the Eagle's Nest, it's a cool base of operation. I like the design in this more than I did in the animation short. But you have to realize that flying bases are risky, they're hard to maintain. I understand why we do it a lot in superhero comics, but once you start thinking about it, grounded base of operation, usually a little bit better in terms of everything's, unless the power supply in that thing is eternal. We don't know how it works yet. Someone did point out, a detractor once did point out, that it kind of looks like the Tortuga from Wildcrats, and that's not a bad thing. The Tortuga is a great design for a mobile operation base. You have to remember, though, the Tortuga in Wildcrats is generally landed or on the sea. It flies from location to location, but they don't use it as a flying base most of the time. So maybe the Wildcrats are better superheroes than Alphacore. Think about that. Another great thing we have in there is that it actually feels like a superhero comic. I said it's a police procedural. Yes, but it's a police procedural in the superhero comic genre. We have action, we've got mystery, we've got suspense, we've got a few character pieces here and there. We've got people actually saving people. Yeah, superheroes actually saving people. It's incredible, I know. I haven't seen that in a long time in DC Comics. So it's actually something that is uplifting at some level, and something that I would let's say someone between, they say teen at the back of this book, even a 9 or 10-year-old could easily read this and find it A, enjoyable, and B, there's nothing that's really awful about it. There's a bit of gore. It's to be expected. I can say here, it's art to wait for more. I know there's a lot of Yaira fan out there that are really expecting Yaira Winter, but honestly, Alphacore is far more up to my speed. This is the kind of thing that I want once every quarter or every 6 months, worst case, because it's the kind of thing that I really enjoy reading and that I enjoy the characters of, even though we haven't seen a whole lot of them yet. I will be giving a full review of this book once the campaign ends, like I did with ISOM number 2. It means I won't be the first one to drop an Alphacore review, but I want to be respectful for everyone since my regular reviews are full spoilers. That's why I'm doing it this way. So I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. Thank you very much for listening to me for so long. Keep on reading comics. Keep on enjoying them. I'll keep reviewing and analyzing them, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.